Welcome, everyone. I am Valerie Went. I'm the product manager here at Glyme for a CPA brand. Glyme does do the CMA, the CIA, and the enrolled agent as well. I have been here at the company for almost 3 years. I've got over 20 years experience, though, in the exam prep space and have met many, many students and just love speaking to you all and encouraging you on your career journey. I'm going to turn over to Ray and let him introduce himself and tell you all a little bit about what he does. Ray?
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Valerie, for the just hosting this tonight. I think this is a great opportunity for all the students to kind of hear with the importance of the internship and kind of what kind of impact it can have on your career long term, not only just in the short term. But so, as you mentioned, I'm the campus recruiting leader for Mazars. I started with Mazars back in September, so I'm still kind of new here, but I was brought in to really help build a solid, strong internship program here. So we're really looking to be a firm that moves from a firm that just hires interns to a firm with a really good internship program, and there is a difference. I think as we talk about this today, we'll talk about some companies or some firms that hire interns, yeah, and they put you to work for the summer and that sort of thing. And then the ones that have really robust internship programs that you can take advantage of. So yes, I'm still new here at Mazars, but my background, I spent several years with KPMG. I've spent time with Northrop Grumman and some other programs that do have good internship programs. Little fun fact for you all: Valerie and I worked together in the past as well at a different company. So we go back a little bit and really love each other and are happy to be here together to present to you.
Yeah, and that just kind of shows the importance of networking, right? So,
Yes.
we have been colleagues, both involved in Beta Alpha Psi. So, if you're a Beta Alpha Psi student, welcome. I'm the current professional partner chair, by the way.
Hmm.
But so we're heavily involved with Beta Alpha Psi, and then, as Ray mentioned, we did work together at another organization prior to us getting connected again here in this space. So, super excited to have them. So, here are some of the topics that we're going to cover this evening between Ray and myself. We're going to first kick it off by just kind of talking about why you should even consider doing an internship, and then moving into how do you select the organization or company that you do that internship with, how to prepare for it, and then have some tips on what recruiters are looking for. Many firms are flooded with applicants for internships. Like, what is it that's going to set you apart to catch the eye of the recruiter? And then once you obtain your internship, how do you make the most out of it? And how do you succeed in that internship? So we're going to kick it right off. And I'm just going to toss this to Ray and say, can you share with the audience why would they even consider doing an internship?
Well, I think we might have these kind of backwards here as far as the number one and the number two reason. Obviously, the number one reason is to get a job, folks. I mean,
Hmm.
let's face it. That's why we go to college. That's why we study. That's why we take the CPA exam. That's why we do all these things, is to get a job, to make money, to feed our families, and make a living. So, an internship is a great way to start the process early, get in with a company, and kind of ride that right on to full time work. Here at Mazars, at several firms that I've been involved with, you can talk to many partners who have been at that firm for a long time, and they started as an intern. They got that experience. They drank the Kool Aid, as some people might say, and just live life in that firm. And it's a great way to do it because some of these firms are so large, or maybe not even large is the right answer, but multifaceted. So you have, audit, and you have tax, and you have consulting, and some advisory services, and these types of things. And you can literally have multiple careers within one organization, and that's something that's really great. So yeah, securing a job is one thing. Um, the experience is another, right? You get a chance to come in and see, well, do I really fit in this culture? Do I like the work that I'm going to be doing? Maybe you realize that a certain firm does work in real estate or does work in financial services, and you get to kind of play around in those areas and figure out if that type of work is what you want to be doing. So you can really test the waters a little bit. You can learn if the type of people that you're going to be working with are the type of people that you could see yourself really working with long term. Um, it's very important, to figure out, how do I want to build my career moving forward, and in what areas do I want to be doing that in, and that the internship helps you determine that.
Good, awesome. And then kind of just going alongside that, Ray, how would somebody go about selecting or finding a company, or how do they
Mhm.
select what type of organization should they consider doing an internship with?
Yeah, this is always, I think this is always the question that students want to ask and are afraid to ask a recruiter or afraid to ask somebody because, um, a lot of times in your schools or in your networking, they're going to push in and say, "Well, don't you want to work for the biggest and the best?" And sometimes that's um, not always the case, right?
Hmm.
Um, there are benefits to all of them, and we just have to really zero in on what they could be. We really want you to think about, what's happening in the halls of your schools, or what are your um, professors telling you? Are they saying, hey, you need to really go big four? That's where you're going to get the best experience. Or are they saying, you know what, consider everything, and let's make sure that you look at all aspects of what firms can do or companies can offer you. I've talked to some schools where the the career centers will actually tell me, they're like, the professors here, they really just push big four and that's about it.
Hmm.
So I'm really encouraged to see that some of you are coming from places that do encourage you to consider many different types of firms.
Good. 64% have been advised to consider all firms,
That's wonderful.
regardless of their size. That's good. I'm
Hmm.
glad to hear that. I mean, there are definite 27% for Big Four. There are benefits of both, of a Big
Hmm.
Four, a regional local firm, or even corporate. It really kind of comes down to what are their career goals, even though early on they may not even know what their career goals are, right, until they get in and figure out what it is that they're doing and what they like and what they don't like and what they fit and mesh with the culture of the firm. But I'm encouraged to see this mixture here.
And it's funny because up until 2017, I would have been firmly in that first category. Seriously, I mean, hand to God. So I worked for KPMG for 11 years, and it was, I mean, you walk on campus, and yeah, we're the big four. I mean, now
Yeah.
granted, you know, PwC, Ernst, well, EY, Deloitte, and KPMG, uh, they're very different in
Yeah.
among themselves. So, when we talk about what to really look for in a firm, you really have to start thinking about what is the culture, what are the people like. The work is going to be very, very similar, right? I would always say that to students that, you know, we're doing audit here for this company. Well, guess what? Tomorrow they could fire us and hire Grant Thornton or hire EY or one of these
Hmm.
other firms to come in and do the exact same thing. We're all doing the same thing. The methodology may be slightly different at each of the firms, but at the end of the day, you're issuing financial statements and an opinion, and that's that. So then it
Right.
comes down to, you know, what types of clients or how big do you want to go? Do you want to be a really big, in a big organization that you're really put into categories and told exactly what you need to be doing at every step of your career, right? But a lot of the big four, it's very structured. You're going to come in, you're going to do certain work as a first year, you're going to do certain work as a second year, and then grow in that capacity. Some of the smaller firms, because it is a little bit more, um, there's a need to have people that can flex and do things outside of just their narrow lane as a first year. Um, it gives you the opportunity to really spread your wings and do some different things.
Mhm.
um, Big Four is going to be working on SEC clients. They're going to be the ones working on the big dog clients, Coca-Cola, BMW, GM, all these types of clients. So again, do you want to work on that, or do you want to work on some smaller projects, maybe secondments to the Big Four? Right, you're working alongside of them in a regional or local firm. So really, it does come down to that. It comes down to figuring out, what is the culture of the place you want to work? What is the type of work you want to be doing? Thirdly, I'll say you really need to get to know and talk to some of the partners that will be guiding and shaping your career.
Mm.
So when you're looking at a firm, the number one thing I always tell people is, who is going to be shaping your career, who's going to be putting you onto engagements and really giving you that opportunity to succeed. And do you have access to those people? So if the answer is yes, then it's a good place to be. If you trust those people, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, all good advice. And I know you talked about culture and norms. We all have different environments that we thrive in.
Hmm.
So it's important that you're in an environment that you can professionally thrive and and do your best work. That's
Yes.
just as important. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
How do we go about, or how would you recommend students go about preparing that? I mean, obviously, this first point here, we talked a little bit about researching the organization and its people.
Yeah.
But like, is there a method to doing that research, and how much is too much, and other things that they can be doing in anticipation of starting their internship?
So there is such a thing as too much, right? I mean, we'll talk about that in a second, but we live in a world where you can get in touch with people very easily. LinkedIn is a fabulous tool at your disposal. Many of you go to institutions that have a really strong alumni base, and you can reach out to alumni to talk about what their organizations are like. So, I mean, use all of these types of tools to reach out. The first point here about not stalking, I call it, don't be a pest, because the reality is sometimes no means no. Um, a lot of people would tell you, well, don't take no for an answer. You'll be able to get what you want if you're persistent. And I can tell you right now, I've got this sheet in front of me. I'm old school here, where I have my head count numbers that I'm hiring for, and there are plenty of jobs that are filled. You know what? No means no. I can't help you. Move on. But if I have something that I can talk to you about, I'm happy to do that. So find a recruiter that's willing to chat with you about the organization, about the job. Use LinkedIn to maybe find some people that are connected in the organization who might be willing to spend a couple minutes and talk to you. Take advantage of every networking event that is hosted on your campus. So whether it's Beta Alpha Psi, like we've talked about, fabulous organization. All the rest pale in comparison. No, Beta Alpha Psi is great, but many
Shameless
of you
plug right there.
yeah, that just plug that in. Um, Many of you have accounting societies on
Hmm.
campus. Alpha Kappa Psi, NABA, Ascend,
Yep.
Alpha, all these fantastic organizations. If they're hosting networking events, be there and get to know people. Um, you know, Make sure that you're listening, make sure that you're taking information in and responding. Use good listening skills. So we often talk about listening to respond as opposed to listening to understand.
Hmm.
So make sure that you really get that. And if you're having a hard time with that, or if your friends tell you that, use your friends, if they tell you that you have a hard time with that, go to your career center and use them to help you hone in on these soft skills so that you can be better
Mhm.
in the networking environment.
We talked about how, recruiters, they have a lot of people trying to apply and
Yeah.
get into that internship. So, what can a student do to make themselves stand out? What are recruiters looking for when, whether it's through the resume that hits their desk or at a Meet the
Mhm.
Firms event? What is it that recruiters are looking for?
The the best thing that I can say to this is, we're looking for someone who understands the role, understands uh, the networking that's necessary for the role. Now I say that, and a lot of you are sitting there saying, "Well, but I'm going to be an accountant, or I'm going to be an auditor, or what do I need to network for?" Well, it's client service work, so we need to find people who have the soft skills that we can then put them in front of our clients and feel comfortable that they're going to represent us well. So soft skills are extremely important. A solid resume is important, and I don't mean you have to have, you know, 2 or 3 internships already, and the best laid out courses that you've taken, and using all these keywords and everything else. What I mean is, have the standard information that we need to see on a resume. And that includes your GPA, it includes, where you're going to school, it includes when you're finishing. Now, when you're finishing means something very different than when you're graduating.
Hmm.
And too often I see on resumes, people say, well, I graduate in May of 23. Okay, well, will that be CPA eligible at the time? Are you going to need to take an extra year for the extra 30 credits? Where are you with this? So that's very important for me to understand how to move forward with you. Um, so
Can you
yeah, I mean
talk a little bit about why? I mean, I know uh, this is going out to audiences that may not be sitting just for the CPA. They
mhm.
may be doing the CMA, the CIA, or the EA. But why is it important for a recruiter to see uh, a candidate's plans with regard to professional certification?
So it's important for a couple things. First of all, it tells me that you're serious about your craft. So for audit and tax, we require the CPA as a requirement to get a job, not to have it, but
Hmm.
to plan to achieve it. The CMA, the EA, the CIA, the CISA, they're all fantastic for the practices that require is not the right word, that find them as
Can benefit
preferred,
from, yeah.
can benefit from them. Um, None of those are required in those areas, but they make you a more serious candidate, right? They say, I've not only spent time, as an academic learning how to do these theories and putting
Hmm.
these things into practice, but then it says, I'm going to show you that I'm really serious about this, and I'm going to go that extra mile and become certified in order to make myself more serious. So
Yeah.
um, all of those are great. The CPA obviously is kind of that high level benchmark, but the CMA and the others can definitely show your seriousness.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. And I'm going to ask you a question with regard to that second bullet here. So, how do you gauge a student's ability to handle difficult situations?
Well, I mean, we're never really going to be able to gauge too much until we see them on the job and
Mhm.
working and that sort of thing. But and this is going to go down the interview path. Okay,
Yeah.
so what most firms are using these days is behavioral interview questions. And if you want to read more into that and practice those and everything else, your career center knows exactly what that term means, and they can help you with mock interviews and everything else. But basically, the concept between behavioral or behind behavioral interview questions is that a person's experiences in the past are going to be accurate predictors as to what we could expect in the future.
Mm.
So instead of me coming into an interview and saying, Val, so tell me, if you were a utensil in a drawer, which utensil would you be and why? It's like, what does that mean? And nobody, that doesn't mean anything. Um, some interview questions might be, can you tell me how many M&Ms I can fit in this jar here? And okay, maybe it's figuring out how to, mathematically, it still doesn't tell me anything, right? Because the
Right.
answer is kind of nebulous. So, what I can do is I can say, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, or Z, and what was the outcome of that? You give me your story. I probe down a little bit more and ask you questions about what you actually did, as opposed to theoretically what you would do.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
So,
good points. Somebody added a question that I think we need to visit before we move on.
sure.
Is could you please repeat? Oh, I think we just did. Somebody answered the question. Repeat the name of the type of interview questions we were just talking about. It was the
Behavioral.
behavioral interview
Yes.
questions. Okay.
Behavioral
Wait.
interview. All of our friends.
So yeah, and I don't know. I know if I look back in my career in preparing for interviews, I don't know that I was ever coached to be
Mhm.
prepared in those types of questions. So I
So
think
it's it
that's
let's talk about that real quick because there
mhm,
is coaching that can go on, right? And you can
right.
be trained to answer certain behavioral interview questions. Now, if you have a good interviewer,
Hmm.
they're going to know how to probe two or three layers down and get you to be answering questions that you did not prepare for. And
Hmm.
that's okay, right? That's all right. That just means I want to know more about the situation and what you really feel about it, not what you prepared ahead of time
Right.
to answer for me. So
Yeah.
I'll just
No,
I'll just throw
I
that
think
out
those
there.
are all good points. And I mean, we could probably spend a whole webinar on
Hmm.
interview skills and how to really, set yourself apart there. But, it is important to know what recruiters are looking for when they're trying to select the best possible candidate for themselves as well. I mean, they're
And
looking at you as much as you're looking at them.
yeah, yeah, and the interview is a very important part of the entire
Hmm.
process, right?
Right.
And this is the format that we're doing interviews with now. We're trying to get back to live in person, but the reality is, moving forward, we'll probably be in a Zoom environment doing interviews for a long, long time. So
Mhm.
it's very important that you figure out how to do that well and how to be comfortable right off the bat and engaging right off the bat
Right.
because that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. One of the last bullets here, Ray, was about minimum GPA requirements. And a
Mhm.
question's come in. I'm just going to read this, it's pretty lengthy. It
Mm,
said, on the point of GPA expectations, I
yeah,
didn't put in a proper effort. 15 years ago when they first went to college, they had about a 2.0 GPA from their earlier years, and it's been about 3.8 since they've been back to school. But it means that their cumulative is, just a hair over three,
yeah.
and some firms could punish them for having a lower GPA, but their recent experience suggests that they probably could be a good hire now. How do they work around something like that?
So there's a couple ways to work around that. First of all, you need to get to know the recruiter that you're working with, right? Because if you present that type of story to a recruiter, they're going to understand what you're talking about,
Mhm.
right? If even if it's just a 4-year experience in college, and hey, I got to college and I had no idea what I was doing. I tanked my first year. I had a 1.3 GPA. This isn't me, by the way. I'm just painting a picture here.
And
Uh,
look how far he's gone.
I know, right? Everybody's like, "Man, this guy's an idiot." Anyway, uh, there are people who do that, and then they're like, "I figured it out," or "I took a gap year, came back, I was ready for what I experienced," and from that point on, right? They even said it in their question was, "From a certain point on, I'm a 3.8." Okay.
Right.
Now listen, you're all accountants, right? We're all studying accounting here, most likely on this on this webinar. Learn how to spin the numbers, make them dance, right? So
Mhm.
you've got your cumulative GPA. Yeah, my cum is maybe a 3.05, um, but my major GPA is a
Mm.
3.8, or my GPA since I came back to college is an X.
Yeah.
And when you start making that presentation, recruiters and even interviewers can see, right? Because let's face it, interviewers want the best. I often hear the term, and I bristle at the term, but if you think about it, the best athlete, right? They want the person who can come in and just step in and start doing the job. And
Mhm.
yeah, they're going to train you on the nitty gritty of it, but they get the customer relations, they get the teaming abilities, they get all these types of things. So
Right. Yep. Now that you have your internship, you found the
mhm.
firm that's going to be the most aligned with, what you're looking for, give you the most experience. How does a student go about making sure that they succeed in that internship?
Mhm. Well, it's very important that one thing you don't do is rest on your laurels, right? I mean, you've won the internship, you're there as a part of a cohort of other interns, and now, guess what? Everybody that they just hired is a really hard worker and is willing to do what it takes to get ahead, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the typical nature of most accounting students, right? They're really hard workers, they're type A personalities. They well, guess what? You're now in a room where you're not the best and the smartest person maybe on campus. Most classes that you go into, you're the best and the smartest, and you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I got these people beat. Well, when you get into an internship cohort, especially with some of these bigger companies, you're talking about, the best student from Penn State, the best student from Syracuse, the best student from UCF, the best student, you know, that's how we build our classes. So you have to figure out, well, what is it that's going to set me apart now? And networking is a huge part of it. You're hearing that word just about at every point of the
Hmm.
conversation. So be available, be engaged. When it comes to intern projects that might be just for the internship, take a leadership role. Um, if they're having intern happy hour or an intern social event, make
Hmm.
sure you're there. Make sure you're participating. Make sure that you're grateful for it. Right.
Hmm.
Um, those things go a long, long way. But yeah, you know, ask questions. There are a lot of interns that come in and they're like, "Well, I should know these things, or I should, I feel like they're giving me this task. I should at least try it first, and then come back to
Now,
them."
like, what if I
Right?
don't know what I'm doing? Is it bad to say that I need some
Well,
more
yeah.
direction, right?
Trust me, you are not going to know what you're doing half the time, right? A lot of you are gonna struggle with imposter syndrome, where it's like, man, do I really deserve to be here? Do I deserve to be here among these other people? The
Mm,
answer is always yes. The answer is always yes. It comes down to you being able to ask the right question and to ask it once, get the understanding, and move on.
mm,
Where questions become a problem is when you're asking the same question over and
mm.
over again, right? And the senior associate that you're working with is sitting there going,
How many
I,
times have I told you?
I've already told you this. It's now 3 hours into the project that should have taken 25 minutes, right? After you asked
Right?
the question.
Yeah.
And now we're just wasting time.
Yeah.
So be purposeful about your questions. Don't ask them, shotgun, save them up, and then set a time and say, can I ask you these questions and help me understand this?
Yeah.
Um, make sure that you stay in contact with your recruiter. They're still going to be the ones guiding you through the process and processing your full-time offer at the end of the internship, right? We're all keeping
Keep
our
that in
fingers
mind.
crossed
Yep.
that that's the goal, right? It's to move out of mom and dad's basement and get your own place and have a full-time job.
Can you talk before we move on to the next tips? Can you talk about communication and how important that is?
Yeah. Um, Communication is something that I think we all could be better at. But it's one of those things where both um, verbal and written communication are so very important to speak clearly and say what you mean, and think through the questions and the comments that you're going to be making. And then when you communicate written, to make sure that it's coherent, to make sure that it's well laid out. Many of you have taken memo writing classes, or there's been memo writing in some of your audit classes or those types of things. Think about that as you're writing out an email.
Mhm.
Make sure that the partners, make sure that the recruiter, make sure that the managers that you work with, they're all kept up to date on what you're working on and the progress that you're making or the lack of progress, right?
Right.
Then that's okay.
Right.
If you're not progressing as you should be, it's okay as long as you're communicating that. It's when you've spent 4 hours on something again that should have taken a half hour, and you come back to them and you say, "I really don't understand this. I've been trying to get it for the past 4 hours and I just don't get it." Then there's frustration because you've wasted all that time and you should have just asked a question at the 45-minute mark as opposed to the 4-hour mark.
Yeah. Good. Good advice. And then just kind of moving on to some of the other tips we have for succeeding. We
Mhm.
talked a little bit about networking. We've talked a lot about networking, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Getting to know those around you and in your organization and staying connected to your recruiter. I don't know. I I find that interesting staying connected to your recruiter, knowing
Mhm.
that at the end the goal is to get that offer.
Yeah.
So important to stay there.
Yeah, because my job as a recruiter is to kind of circle back with those managers and senior associates throughout the experience.
Hmm.
Okay, so how's Val doing? Like, is there anything that we should? Is there any red flags? Are there any things that we should, be alerted to? So
Hmm.
that's one thing. On the networking front, I would encourage, and I know we keep talking about networking, but it's not just being engaged and plugged into the events that maybe as the recruiter I put on for you, and you network with the other interns, and that's all very very important. But maybe find a partner that you gel with, and ask them if you can sit down and have coffee with them and just talk about their career. Ask them if they'd be interested in maybe meeting for breakfast before work one day and just again talk to them about what they've experienced. Maybe it's somebody who went to the same school that you went to, or maybe it's somebody who came up through the ranks and worked on a certain client that you're interested in, but find a reason to reach out and say, hey, would you mind if we just sat down and I'd love to talk to you about your experiences and you know that type of thing.
That's all
Partners
great
eat
advice.
that up. They eat it up. They're like, man, that Val, I tell you, she is not shy. She's willing to put herself out there. And what that tells the partner too is that when it comes to business development, right? When
Hmm.
you get to the point as a manager where you're going out and you're soliciting clients and trying to get them, trying to win business, that you're
Hmm.
not afraid to reach out
Good
above
point.
your station, right? I'm using my air quotes there, your station, because let's face it, we're all equals, right? The interns and the partners are all equal. But the reality is, you're not afraid, you're not intimidated
Hmm.
to reach out and ask for just a relationship and start that there.
Yeah. Let's talk about being present.
Mm. You know, it's a very good time during the internship to fast from YouTube and from TikTok and from all of those ones that just suck us in and like, oh, another video, oh, another video. You know,
Hmm.
I've often talked to interns that got poor reviews who weren't even aware, and I talked to the managers and the seniors, and they're like, well, yeah, we might have been on downtime, but they're sitting there watching YouTube or they're, checking their Facebook page. And, instead, when they could be, looking at the board of directors minutes or checking out the other financial statements to see what they can learn and how they can grow, or talking to the seniors or the managers and saying, is there anything else I can do? Is there anything that, needs to be done before we check out for the day? Instead, they're plugging themselves in and they're kind of looking for that downtime,
Hmm.
and it's not a good use of time.
Right. About taking time off, try
Mhm.
to discourage, uh, you know, I guess, when you're planning on even starting an internship,
Yeah.
being aware of what may be coming, so that you don't plan
So I've
unnecessary
got
time off.
yeah, I've gotten that where interns come and they're like, "Hey, my family's taking a week vacation and I'd really like to be a part of it." And that's fine. I mean, look, we give interns vacation time.
Mhm.
It's not normally paid, but I mean, you can take time off if you want to, and that's fine. But just realize when you start thinking about a 9 or a 10 week internship, And the first week is typically all training and orientation and everything else. In the middle of it, you have 4th of July, which usually cuts out 2 or 3 days. Plus, there are a lot of people who do take vacation during that time and they're not in the office. The seniors, managers, partners, all
Mhm.
those people. And then the final week is typically, more wrap up type stuff. So you're cutting 2 or 3 days off there. It really does shrink the internship to
Does.
6 or 7 weeks. And you want to really spend that time honing in and learning as much as you can and growing as a professional.
Mm.
So, can you? Yeah. Should you? No. Most internships in the summer aren't going to start until maybe the first full week of June, maybe the second week of June. So you have that time, a couple weeks in May that you could maybe go and do
Mhm.
something, have some fun, and then you have that time in August, depending on when your semester starts back up, to when you could maybe take a week or two and go to the beach or go someplace
Yeah.
fun. So.
Yeah. Just plan ahead
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
you're trying to say.
and it's really all about planning, right? Because when you become a professional, when you get a job in one of these firms, you know, you're gonna need to know when your busy season is, and you're not
Right.
gonna be taking vacation during your busy season.
Right. Right.
So, think of it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lifelong decision.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And then,
There will be plenty of time. That's the thing
oh,
I
yeah.
really wanna underscore. There will be plenty of time for you to play. I mean, when I was here at Mazars, we give 20 days of paid day off, in addition to all the holidays. So, I mean, you've got 4 weeks right there that you can play with and do what you wanna do.
Right.
Um Most of you on this call, if you went and asked your parents how much, you know, vacation time they got when they were your age or even now, they'd probably say 2 weeks. Maybe I got third week in my 20th year or something like
Mhm.
that. You're starting off with 20
Right.
days, 4 weeks.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
got a great career. And I think we talked about this last one, and, just kind of wrap it up here with this last one, being up for anything that a
Mhm.
partner or a manager may ask you to do, and to not be picky, and to not show displeasure, and being asked to do something, accepting those assignments that are given to
Yeah.
you graciously.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really, just assignments that aren't fun, right? I mean, now granted, at no point should you be the gopher for the team, right? There may be situations where, like, hey, as a team, our first year is always order lunch for us, and as a team or whatever. Um, you're treated as a first year associate. So that might
Mm.
be part of your responsibility. Um, I know some interns have complained. They're like, well, they had me at believe it or not, this used to be the case, a fax machine all day and just, waiting for a fax to come in.
Many of these on this call probably don't even know what a fax is.
Just go with me on this, okay? Um, but the reality was that
Yeah.
was an important
Hmm.
part of the engagement. They were
Right.
waiting for important documentation to come across the line that
Yep.
was not to be seen by anyone else other than our engagement group.
Right.
So if you weren't doing it as the intern, a first year associate would be doing that and
Hmm.
would be the same thing, like, why do I got to stand here next to the,
Hmm.
but it's just the way it is. So, what do you do with the time that you have there? How do you make it worth it? Right.
Right.
Maybe when those minutes come in, the board of directors minutes, you kind of read through them and you get yourself accustomed to, how does a
Hmm.
board of directors work, or how does that fit into the engagement, into the final work papers, all that kind of stuff. These are the questions that make that experience valuable, as opposed to, I was just doing nothing and they had me,
Yeah.
doing grunt work. Well, take the grunt work and make it educational.
That's right. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes tonight's webinar. I am going to put up a slide with our contact information. Please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, reach out to us through email, and we're happy to discuss further with you. We thank you so much for the time that you spent with us this evening. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Val. I appreciate it.
Good night, everyone.
Bye bye.